Well, C.S. Lewis wrote about the concept that chivalry and biblical marriage cannot coexist together. And here's why. In his book, The Allegory of Love, he says in it, as I have said before, where marriage does not depend upon the free will of the married, any theory which takes love for a noble form of experience must be a theory of adultery. And of course, adultery is antithetical to biblical marriage. Okay, so to explain this, because this is kind of hard to grasp what he's saying here, but what he's saying here is when we elevate romantic love to something moral, to where it has moral value, then marriage can no longer be moral, because you can't have both of them at the same time being moral. At that point, marriage must bend to romantic love, or in his words, be dependent on romantic love, because he's saying that marriage must not, or must depend upon the free will of the married. It must not be dependent on romantic love or something else. So you notice that's not our current view of marriage. If a woman marries someone that she doesn't love, and of course love is the moral force in marriage, maybe she marries because she wants something else out of marriage, whether it's power or money or whatever, then she must be allowed to exit the marriage at will. And if she marries for love but later falls out of love, she must be allowed to exit the marriage at will as well. So the same concept, because if she didn't marry for love, then the marriage is not morally good. And so C.S. Lewis is saying that marriage must be dependent on the free will of the married, not dependent on anything else. Like marriage in and of itself is morally good. So if marriage is seen as something moral, a real binding commitment, and it's moral again in and of itself, then in order to glorify romantic love, you have to have a glorification of adultery. And that's where chivalry comes in. Chivalry and courtly love are again antithetical to biblical marriage. You can't get around this by bringing chivalry and courtly love into marriage, because the logic still would remain the same. Either marriage has moral meaning or romantic love has moral meaning, but both can't have moral meaning. And so, as I did in the last video, when the Puritans so long ago incorporated chivalry into marriage, they killed biblical marriage here in the idea that marriage in and of itself is moral. Even John Milton understood this, which is why he argued that when the feelings of romantic love were gone in a marriage, then the marriage could no longer exist. Now that's pretty sinister. I talked about that in the last video series about blinded by chivalry, that when the romantic feelings die, then the marriage is basically over. Well, that means, again, I think I'm going to coin this phrase, I'm going to trademark it, that we have a romantic feelings partnership. We don't really have a marriage, because when the romantic feelings go away, then the partnership dissolves. And that's not good. We got to get that turned around. Even with all that being said, though, Christ is winning. He is building his church, and the gates of hell will not prevail against it. Until next time, this is the Post Millennial Man.